I am, as you can probably tell by my voice, being a little different. I'm a little bit recovering from some sick today. However, I have a good feeling about what we're going to do today. I think it's going to be fun and cool. So we'll see what happens. We've got Rory with us from the UK. Rory is an expert plugin developer and CodeRush evangelist, and he started out being a CodeRush user. And Rory, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. My sound is sorted, and everything else is good.
Good. So yeah, I just have this, incredibly sexy voice all of a sudden. So, I
can't speak to that.
And I just can't exploit it. So unfortunately, you're stuck with me, folks who are listening in. All right. So let's create a new plugin. To do this, we go to the DevExpress menu and we select New Plugin. And then we're presented with this menu, which allows us, or this UI, which allows us to select what language we're going to work in, and I'll choose C# for this, and what kind of plugin we're going to build. We can do a standard plugin, or we can do a tool window plugin. I'll start by selecting a tool window plugin for this session. For subsequent sessions, for the session we'll do next week, and for weeks after, we'll probably spend most of our time doing standard plugins. But we'll start with the tool window plugin. A tool window plugin just creates a tool window like you see the Solution Explorer in the background. It's something that I can dock to the sides, something that I can put information in while we're working or interact with the user, that sort of thing. So that's what we will create. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to put this, I've got a folder right here called Projects, and inside of there, we'll create a solution called Tool Windows and Actions. And up here we'll call this one that we're going to create, we'll call this the Markers Tool Window. And by the name, you can probably guess that I'm going to do something with markers, maybe show the status of them, that sort of thing. And we'll say, okay, let's see what happens.
Just to remind people at any time, just hurl us some questions in the questions window there. We'll try and get to as many of them as we can. Clearly, this is the sort of thing that virtually none of you may have done before, so there's bound to be a few questions here and there.
All right, so far, here inside that folder, we've got a solution built for us and an empty folder inside of that. CodeRush is asking us another question. What settings do you want to have for this plugin project? I virtually always click OK on this dialog, but the dialog does allow you to specify that you want to create a system plugin. And if you hover over it, you can see that the system plugins are loaded simply before all the other plugins. So it's kind of a priority issue there with regards to if you call this plugin a system plugin, it's essentially going to be loaded up before everything else. You also have another option which is called Load Manually, where you can use the plugin manager to load this. And this is actually something I think you've used before, Rory. Is that right?
Yeah, I have indeed. It's just in case you happen to be doing other things at the same time. You don't want your plugin loading to every copy of Studio you've got. So you say don't load into any of them by default, and I'll tell you when I want you to load. Yeah.
So I actually never use this option ever in any of my development. I just simply go out and I guess I use Discipline. I go out and I delete the DLL before I start Visual Studio up if I want to work without it. For example, if I maybe want to work with the source code and recompile it. And the default load type is on demand. I highly recommend you keep this. This allows CodeRush to start up very quickly. You could say you want it to always load at startup, or you could say on idle. And if you choose on idle and demand hits, it will load up when demand hits. If demand hits before the idle time has occurred. So you don't have to worry about losing anything if you choose on idle, but what idle is useful for is if you're likely to need this, whatever services this plugin provides, but you don't want to have the hit on startup. So that's kind of the order which of these is in decreasing order of hit on startup. So this is going to have the most impact, and this will have the least impact. So like I say, I just click OK on this. This, by the way, is title of this. I can change it to just markers, but I can change it. The markers tool window. Like that. And then now that I've renamed it, I can now hit the tab key and jump to all the different locations of the partial class. So here you can see, this one's kind of interesting because we've got a GUID up at the top of this. And inside of here we have two methods built for us called show window and hide window. And show window shows this, will show this window, and hide window will hide it. So it's just basically wrapping in some pretty complex code that you otherwise have to write by hand whenever you wanted to show it. So we've just got a couple static methods in here to just show and hide the window. And that's inside that partial, the partial kind of hidden version of that same tool window class. I'll keep tabbing to next reference. I'm back around to the main source code right here that I'm working with. So given that we've just built this, let's now we'll create an action. To create an action, I actually want to come in here and I want to add a new item to this. And I want to create a standard plugin for this. So I'm going to go into Visual C# items, go into DXCore. Let's use a standard plugin right here. And this is just going to give me a surface to drop an action on. So let's go into our toolbox. And here under DXCore, you've got some controls up here. And these are essentially the DevExpress controls that you can use. There's special versions of the DevExpress controls that you can use inside of Visual Studio, tool windows, and your plugins, any dialogues and UI you want to present your plugins. So if you have DXperience, a license to DXperience, you can get access to all these controls and drop them in your plugins and tools. They only work inside of Visual Studio. The reason there's a different, distinct version has to do with the nature of plugins that are loaded inside of Visual Studio, and we don't, and it has to do with conflict with the other DLLs that are out there, and these resolve that conflict. They put them in a different namespace. All of these types that are out there, so we don't have like two sets, and it works for people that don't have controls. So, but the more important pieces are here in this DXCore extension providers and this other DXCore folder. These are the pieces that we'll use as we in the coming weeks, as Rory and I talk about building plugins for CodeRush, and actually this applies to DXCore as well. And actually, Rory, I think we should tell everybody when I say DXCore, give everybody an explanation of that. You want to give my voice? I'm going to give my voice a rest unless you let you explain for me.
Yeah, sure.
DXCore and CodeRush.
Essentially, DXCore is to the CodeRush, a bit like the .NET framework is to most of your applications. It is the core framework on which CodeRush plugins and indeed CodeRush itself is built. So all of the guts of the provider, so the ability to parse source code, to generate new source code, all of that sort of those base services are held in the DXCore. It's a free framework you can get from DevExpress site. All you've got to do is go to the right location. I think it's devexpress.com/DXCore. And it comes obviously with CodeRush and CodeRush Express, all of the other products that we provide in that IDE space, and it will be installed and it'll just be a natural part of things. And so every plugin you write can take advantage of the services that are also made available to CodeRush. It's kind of just, it sits at that bottom layer, providing all of the bits that you need at the base level for building your plugin on.
Thanks, Rory. Yeah, the cool thing about this is, as we built CodeRush, we had essentially extreme amounts of discipline, and the discipline goes like this. If we're adding a feature, and the feature has useful code in it that could be used by another feature, we push that down into the core, and that's one part of the discipline. The other, perhaps more foundational part of the discipline is every feature is a plugin. So as a result, the DXCore is incredibly powerful. It's as if it would be, hold on, I'm just going to go back. I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit sick and my mind's a little bit groggy, I think, a little bit on this, Rory. But I was going to say, it's as if Visual Studio were built the same way, then its API would also be incredibly robust, right? But yeah. Visual Studio didn't start this way. They didn't start but with this discipline that says every feature used must use our API, our extensibility. And the advantage that you get is that if you want to build something, you can do any of the things that we do in CodeRush, right? Even the crazy things like when we're animating, we're animating the parameters for reorder parameters and moving those around. Even the animation on the editor. All of these things that we do that are, that make it look like the editor is far more dynamic than it actually is. It's essentially an illusion, and it's provided by the power that's inside the DXCore. So every single feature that's inside CodeRush, every single feature that's inside Refactor Pro is something that you could write as a plugin. The only catch to all of this is the license agreement, which says you can't copy functionality, you can't rewrite functionality we're already shipping in CodeRush or Refactor Pro, and ship that. So you can't share anything that copies what's already inside of CodeRush. So that's the only caveat. So,
which is quite reasonable, really, because we want to make money somehow.
Yeah, it's not unreasonable. You're right, and there, like I say, there's a huge amount of power, and there's nothing that stops you from like copying that stuff just for your own internal, personal use and understanding how plugin writing and these kinds of things work. In fact, actually, I'm just now thinking maybe I shouldn't say this, but one of the things we're working on.
I wondered if you were going to bring this up.
Is one of the things we're talking a lot about is releasing full source code to all of the plugins that ship with CodeRush. It's essentially the entire source code to everything except for the low-level DXCall. So we're talking about this. So all the source code for all the refactorings, all of this stuff, something that we're talking about. Now, for those of you listening to this, and if you happen to live in a time frame, or you're listening to this in a time frame where it does not exist, the full source code to everything, but you want to see source code to something in particular, you can send us an email, and I bet you we can, share something with you. So if you want to find out how particular refactoring is working, something along those lines, shoot us an email, either to Rory or myself, or support at DevExpress.com, and we will do our best to get that to you. Okay, so we're going to talk about actions, one of the things we're going to talk about. So we created a tool window which has nothing in it yet. I want to drop down two actions here. I'm going to do one that's kind of a test action, and another one that's going to be functional. So let's grab our properties window, and we'll bring that up for these, and we'll specify some values here. So one of the great things, if this is the first time you're seeing this, one of the cool things about building a CodeRush plugin is it's designed to be an extremely efficient experience, and as a result, one of the ways and also an easy and a very discoverable experience, or at least that's what our goal is, right? I think, to be fair, there's a lot in CodeRush, a lot we're shipping, and so it's not always discoverable. Sometimes you have to go ask questions in the forums, or you have to send questions to support, but generally we can do anything you want. Anything you want to do, there's something there for it generally. But I'll show you this first level of discoverability, and that's in the form of the items we saw on the toolbox. We dropped an action down, and here we're going to put this on here. By the way, Rory, I haven't told people what an action is. Can you help me out with that?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. An action is essentially a single piece of code that executes on command. So if any of you have ever bound keystrokes to commands or reconfigured your shortcuts in CodeRush, what you're operating against there is listed in the dialog as a command. And the reason it's called a command there is because it's got two sets of items that can be in the dropdown. So two things your shortcut could configure. It could either trigger one of these actions, which is kind of like a void proc set of code that we'll go into in a minute. Alternatively, you can also put Visual Studio commands in there, and we will call them every bit as easily. So those are the two options. You can see marked up and a couple of those.
For example, you could do something like that, right? Edit.deleteLine. We don't actually list those here in the drop-down combo. This is actually kind of a power tip here for CodeRush. But and the reason why is because they put, like, Visual Studio's got like something like 2,000 of these. Yeah. If you know what the command is or you see it, you can actually bind shortcuts here, and it's more powerful than binding in Visual Studio's keyboard shortcut binding dialog because of the context here. Which I'm not going to get a whole lot of detail in, but basically it allows you, for example, this binding here will only happen if an HTML view has focus. But you can get into incredibly detailed levels of context, and I would say the number of combinations here are easily approaching infinity in terms of what you can do.
We should also point out that later in this series we'll be showing you how to make your own contexts, because they're just plugins as well. So you can invent your own piece of managed code, queries anything under the sun, effectively, and as a result says yes or no, and can be used as a context in just the same way. But that's maybe
so I'm filling out some properties. I've filled out action name and I've filled out description. This is for our first action test. Over here on the on this page, I'm going to double click on there. Now I've got on the execute event handler. That was on the events page, and now I can fill out some code here. So I might be able to put up a message box on here. My MD template. Oh, I see why. Let's see if it works there. No? Come on. I had problems with MD before, I think. I'm going to have to do it the old way, the old-fashioned way. Message box, what is it, .show?
Yeah.
And first test. Okay. So there's that piece. Let's go back over here, and let's fill this one out. This is the one I want to have. I want to create to show my tool window over here. So let's come back into properties. We'll call this ACT show tool show markers tool window. Like that, and copy just this part. So I've just named the control there. I like to use ACT for to abbreviate because it's an action. But down here, this is the real important piece. Action name, show markers tool window. And the description down here will be show markers tool window. Okay.
So the action name, that's the piece that will show up in that drop-down list that we saw.
Right. Okay, and let's do the same thing over here. We can double-click on execute, or we can double-click here to create that for us, and this is where we want to actually show it. So we have that markers tool window, and we have that static method called show window in there. So it's going to show it. Now, in the back of my head is something I'm thinking about telling you, so now that I've said that, I'm going to tell it to you. You might have been wondering, well, why didn't I drop an action here, right down here and do it on the tool window? I could have done that. The problem, however, has to do with creation. When this tool window is created, so is everything down here, which means if we set this up, it'll be registered, but it won't be able to execute, or it won't be able to execute until the tool window is actually created. So this would be useful if I wanted to have only actions that were available when this thing was actually once it was created. But in general, that I've never seen that actually be the case with any plugin I've written. So I'll always put them over here on this plugin design surface. So I just created a second plugin. So these are essentially two different plugins that I have here, right, inside one big DLL, Markers Tool Window. This will always be available because the plugins by default are created always, but tool windows are not always created. So that's the distinction there. One other thing that's bugging me is here. I want to hit the CodeRush refactor key, choose rename file to match type. So I've now got markers toolwindow.cs here on all these, so you see it's renaming all of those. All right, next let's do the layout on the markers tool window. So what I want to do here, and let's talk about markers for a second. Rory, save my voice for me. Demonstrate what you tell me people what markers are.
Okay, so a marker is like a trail of breadcrumbs. Every time you drop one, or every time a feature in CodeRush drops one, it adds one to the top of the stack. And much like a normal stack, you can accumulate many items here, jumping from place to place. And then in the case of markers, we retrieve them using the escape key. And when you do this, it will locate the one on the top of the stack, jump you to its location, and remove it from the stack. So you basically, it's like a growing and then shrinking list. You can also jump. There's various other commands for switching between where you currently are and the top marker. It gets very involved. I have to confess it's not a feature I use at that level very often, but certainly in sort of breadcrumb, very basic fashion, it can be very useful for finding where you were before you were here. As I say, some other CodeRush features drop these for you, certainly when you go to definition of things. It'll lead you back where you were, and it's very handy for jumping back again to where you started.
Tab to next reference, for example. If I hit escape, it'll take me back to where I started. So yes, those are markers. Markers can also do, the only thing Rory didn't say is that markers can also do selection. So I can have a selection and jump back as well, restore selection. So marker restores, essentially is a stack-based, it tracks in a stack-based manner caret positions or selections. So that's what a marker is, but we don't have anything that visualizes those inside of CodeRush. So let's go ahead and add those. So let's go to the design surface here. And first thing I want to do is find a splitter and put a splitter on this. I'm going to set some properties for this. I want to make it so its orientation is it's horizontal. And now I want to put in a list box in the top. And I want to put a, well, let's go ahead and set that doc property there to client. So there's my list box. I want to give it a name like LST markers. So this is going to have the list of all the markers in it. I want to set its draw mode. I'm going to actually paint these in myself to owner draw fixed. And I'm going to set item height to 16 for now. And I think I want to do something else. Let's set the font to, actually, you know what? Let's not set the font here. Let's do this programmatically instead. I think it's going to be a little more interesting. So there's my list markers at the top. At the bottom, I actually want to put a preview of the code. So one of the cool things that you get with the DX core is this control called Code Preview. CodeView, I'm sorry, right there. I'm going to drop that inside. If you don't see all of these that you're seeing in mine, you can right-click, choose Add Items, and find the ones that are there. They're part of the DX core and the DevExpress, DLLs that are out there. So there's a CodeView I've just dropped in here. CodeView is super interesting, super powerful. It essentially can show you code, syntax highlighted in any of the languages that we support. So so let's set some properties on that. We'll set its doc property to full, define. I mean, we'll call this code preview. Give it a better name. Let's come up here. Let's set some events on this. I need a draw item on it. I'm just going to set them now, but I'm not going to write any code yet. This is one of my favorite ways to develop plugins. Is I essentially what you're seeing me do is fill out the framework of it. I handle all the events I anticipate that I'm going to need, and then I run it, and then I use edit and continue to actually implement the code. For me, I find it's much more useful to actually have instances of things with live data in them so I can explore than it is to write it all, run it, and then come back and make changes, that sort of thing. Find out later that maybe I forgot to be handling an event or something like that. So I try to think about what are the events I'm going to need. So I want to be able to also double-click on these to navigate. So I'm going to handle double-click as well. And I've got draw item, double-click, and when the selected item changes, I also want to be able to update the code preview down at the bottom. Now, in the code preview, we have this killer, awesome event. Is it painted? Because if the main viewer text has been painted, that's it. So I'm going to handle this one right here. Double-click this, painted. So when it's painted, then that allows me to paint on top of it. So what I'm going to do is kind of put a circle around where the marker is so you can kind of get a sense of where that is in that code preview. So let's see what I've got. So I think I have so the essence of what I'm going to need here. I'm hoping I'm not forgetting anything or not anticipating anything. The one thing I think I want to do also in initialize plugin here in the tool window though is I want to set, I was talking about programmatically setting values in here. For list markers, I want to set its font, and I think we have inside CodeRush dot, I think we have is it a Visual Studio VS settings. I have a font and a subtype font. Excuse me. So here's what I'm doing. I'm setting the font size, the font equal to the Visual Studio font. So what we display inside of there will be in the same font. The other thing I want to do is I want to set that item height piece as well. And I'm not sure if we've got something in here like line height. Wouldn't that be awesome? We don't have line height. So I'm going to set this later then, I think, for now. I think I set it to 16 already. That may be high enough, but if it's not, we'll maybe add some code to try and figure that out. So let's see here. One of the things we want to do also is we want to populate this whenever there's a change. And if we go click on the events, when I say change, I mean when somebody drops a marker or picks up a marker, we want to show the stack, the change to the stack. So I'm going to click on events here, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to see we have two events that start with word marker, collected and dropped. And you can see in the description, this occurs when a marker is dropped, when a marker is collected. Now, since this is our first tutorial on building CodeRush plugins, Rory, do you want to speak a little bit about this DX Core Events class and what you can find in here?
Right. So the DX Core Events class, this is interesting because I haven't done many tool window plugins, and I actually don't use this as often as maybe some others would, because most of my plugins tend to be non-visual. Okay.
Well, let me just tell you then that the events that you see here are the same events that you see here.
Indeed.
When you have when you're just clicking on the design surface. So,
absolutely. And
I know you know about this, so
Indeed,
it's the same thing.
No. What they are is that it's actually not the entire set of events either, but perhaps the ones that are more likely to be used. They're there for almost anything you can conceive of. So project opening and closing, navigating your caret around different points in the code.
Right, you've got key press whenever somebody
changes key pressing. Yeah, I mean, it's
press.
basically whenever you think of anything that it is literally event-driven programming for, shall we say, the editor itself. So when you'd normally do something like a WinForms application, and you'd have button clicks for the button, and you'd have people typing in text boxes. Well, you have a similar kind of thing. You've got clicking in the editor, you've got typing in the editor, painting on the editor. You can see all the mouse move events there. There's a huge wealth of events there, and it certainly would, you know, if you intend to write any more plugins than just like the one or two, just have a look through there and see the kind of breadth that you can be notified of. It's a hugely complex, or not complex, rich object model. And the events shown here are just one side of that, but it can give you a good idea of the sorts of stuff you can achieve.
So Roy did say one thing in there that I was like, wait, don't tell him that. That's a secret. And that was he said that, you know, these are not the entire list of events. This is probably, I would say, about 90% of the events that we actually have. The other 10% are events that are low-level events that we are nervous about people playing with and getting into because they could, I think, they could jeopardize. I don't know if jeopardize is the right word, but I'll use it anyway. Jeopardize the stability of you know, everything working like it should. So there's a small set that you might rarely need that we can you know, support can help you with if you need.
I would say in the 5 or 6 years that I've been playing with this stuff, I think I've had to go outside of that list maybe once, and since then I think it's been included in here anyway. It's, you know,
okay.
So it's not a big thing. You're very unlikely to need to go outside this list.
Yeah. So the events are in here. So back over here on our tool window. Here, I'm clicking on this events component. So we get an events component here so that you get the same kind of events that you get on the normal design surface for the plugin. So in these events, we had those two in there. It was marker collect and marker drop. We're going to handle both of those.
Yep.
And okay, so when this happens, I want to update the marker list. This. That's what I want to do. And let's copy that, let's paste that here. I can use smart paste as well to paste that in, or I can use one of the CodeRush declare features to do that as well to get that. So there, got update marker list. I don't think I'm going to do anything on this yet, but I'm well, you know what, let's go ahead and write a little bit of code and see what we get on this. So inside CodeRush, so CodeRush, by the way, CodeRush dot is the access to a huge amount of the power, and and the power is divided up into groups. So, for example, CodeRush.editor will give you things that you can do on the editor, like make it active, to find out if it has focus, for example, show the designer. This comes across. CodeRush.markers has several calls inside of it, and it also implements IEnumerable, so I can actually come in here and I can do a for each on the markers. And what I did there is I just copied CodeRush.markers to the clipboard. I copied that, cut it to the clipboard, and then I used the FE template there. And the FE template figured out that I was enumerating through iMarkers, and so that built the line of code for me right there. So for each marker in markers, I then want to go into my list markers, and I want to say items dot add. So and then we'll add the marker to it. Okay. I also want to say I want to clear it up here too as well. Okay, so items.clear is right there. So I'm going to clear it. I'm going to add all the items, and I think I also want to do. Let's go into where we are when the selected index changes. I want to come in here and I want to say if e dot. Oh shoot, that's going to be it. Okay, so if it's going to be list markers dot selected index is less than 0. Or if it's greater than the count, or if it is greater than or equal to markers.items.count. Then I want to get out of here. Otherwise, I want to say list markers of items of this piece. Items of that as a marker. So iMarker is something you get down inside of CodeRush, and one of the cool CodeRush features, I use this all the time, is to write a line of code like this where it's essentially an expression, hit the CodeRush refactor key and choose to declare local on it. And so we'll call this marker like that, and copy that to clipboard. If that's null, then we're going to return. Otherwise, I want to do something like, I want to say selected marker. I'm actually going to change this into a field. Put that right there. So my selected marker is equal to marker. What I probably want to do is I probably want to set it to null here. So now I've got a selected marker here. The selected marker has changed. Then I want to do an update to the code preview. So called code preview.invalidate like that. Remember that's changed. And actually, you know what? I think instead of doing that, because I think I can do instead of calling invalidate on it, I think there's a method in here called show code. Instead, let's send it some code. So I'm not sure what this is going to be yet. The language, you know what? Let's do something before we call this. Let's drop a marker there, and we'll come up, and we need to get some things here. We need to know what code to show it. So let's first of all look at selected marker and see what it gives us. So this is the marker. It tells us what column it is, the file name it's in, whether it's hidden or not, the life remaining. So one of the things about a marker is you can have a marker that has a certain lifespan in seconds. Useful to essentially have a marker that might be useful over a period of time and then eventually just removes itself if it hasn't been used in a certain period of time. The line number it's on, the offset, seconds remaining, the style of the marker there, and temporal tells whether it's removed after its lifespan expires, and then text document. That's where I was eventually getting to, the text document. So text document's got a method in it called getText, and it can pass in the line number that we're going to look at, and so it can also specify a start line and an end line. So what I'm thinking is, let's go with the selected marker.line, and what we really want to do is say like minus some amount. And what I think I really want to do here is maybe like say top line, and then let's say end line. Let me stick with the parameters here. So start line, end line. Choose declare local on this. Submit. Let's choose declare local on this as well. Submit. And I'm going to say something like it's equal to start line. I need to know how many lines I'm going to show inside that code preview window. So I'm going to go to code preview, and what's line count say? Number of text lines displayed in the view. Beautiful. So the line count is there. So I want to say, let's declare local here. Lines to show is equal to that, the number of lines. And so start line is going to be equal to selected marker dot line, so the line number that it starts at, minus lines to show divided by 2. End line is equal to start line plus lines to show. Like that. So then, now I've got a span of text here. The get text call returns something. I'm going to use declare local there. That's going to be the code I want to show. Okay? So now inside the show code, I'm going to come in there. Now the language is part of, is known by text document. So the text document dot language is there. That will now show me the code. Okay?
So this is a great example of how the DXCall has provided all of these things that you could spend ages trying to figure out in just raw code if CodeRush had to do this itself. So again, all these services, these facilities to work out what the language is, which piece of code you're actually pointing at, the start, the end line, obviously is just a surrounding of that. All effectively done for you. So there's a very minor amount of code being written here.
Yeah, it's not bad. And I should also point out that I actually have error checking in here, right? Everywhere you're seeing this, you know, if active document is null, whatever, I'm out of there. So normally when you have demos, you don't have the error checking, so and it looks even more impressive. I think what I want to do also is you know, part of the goal here is to paint something on top of it in this painted method. And to do that, I'm going to need to know what the start line is so I can find out how far down to paint it. So I'm gonna break this into 2 lines, and I'm going to come in here and widen scope to promote that to field. So now start line is now promoted to a field. Selected marker, I want to set that to null just before any kind of change. So I want to set it to null here when the marker is collected and when it's dropped.
Yeah.
So I now have selected marker. I still need to draw the item. I'll write that after I run it. And double click, I need to navigate, and I'll write that when I run it. And the preview we need to, this is the painted method, so I'm going to write something there. For now, let's just do this. e.graphics.draw line, and we'll go pens.powder blue, and we'll go from 00 to 100, 100. Just to show conceptually that we can draw on-side of that and on the code preview when it's working. And at this point, I'm going to run it, Rory. I'm going to save it and run it, saving everything, hitting run. So when we run and debug, actually, if you're using SP1, there's an issue. Sorry, SP1. Let me clarify. If you're using Visual Studio 2010 Service Pack 1, which I am not, this next step that I'm doing isn't going to work, right, Rory? Is that right? There's a problem with this.
There is.
So you have to, go ahead. Can you explain that? And I think we don't have a fix for it yet, but we're working with Microsoft on that, and either they're going to fix it or we're going to fix it. Right now, they're looking at it. So.
The current problem is if you launch a second copy of Studio, which is what running a plugin in debug mode will do, and then load one of our plugins within it, if that plugin is targeting CLR2, it will not hit any breakpoints within it. That is assuming you are running Service Pack 1. You need to target .NET 4 in order to hit breakpoints. Something to do with the debugger, we think. As yet, not a full explanation has been given. The difficulty with doing this, of course, is that if you're building a .NET 4 plugin, it won't run inside of Studio 2008. At least I believe that's the case. I haven't tried it myself in some time since I moved on to 2010 for a while now. But yeah, so the workaround for that, if you were to run everything up, you can detach from Studio, detach from all, and then reattach manually. You will, in fact, be able to hit the breakpoints. It's just a little workaround. It's a bit awkward, but it will get you by for now.
Yeah. So so that's something, like I say, in this moment of time, in this moment in time, we're not sure if Microsoft's going to fix this or if there's something we can provide a workaround for. But we do know Microsoft is looking into it right now. And okay, so let's see. Let's look at what we're doing here. Oops. Okay, so this is a side effect of my build right here. Visual Studio is not responsive in the background. When you do this, you're going to find Visual Studio is much more responsive. I have a build that I haven't fixed yet that is slow in this instance of starting up. But I did do a test of this earlier today, and it eventually does show up. So, by the way,
we should give a little background as to what we're doing here, because very few people will have debugged something running inside of Studio before. You've actually got two completely different copies of Studio. So when you're used to your WinForms or your WPF application, what happens is you hit F5, and maybe you've got a breakpoint in place, and you will hit that breakpoint. And what's happening is that at that moment in time, you're running your application, but you've paused it. And then you can refer back to your copy of Studio, and it will allow you to inspect variables and things like this. The same thing is going to be happening here. We can do all those same things. It's just the application we're debugging isn't Studio itself, but it's hosted inside Studio. And so we pause execution, and you get to examine various things. I bring this up because it can get kind of confusing with two copies of Studio going at the same time. I've accidentally manually launched plugins in the wrong copy before, which has caused all kinds of locking issues. So try to keep which one you're actually dealing with correctly done. I've actually debugged the code I'm running by loading the code a second time in the second copy of Studio. It's kind of silly.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite things to do, Roy. I love doing it so much. There's something about this recursive nature of it that I just
going out on a limb and then sawing the limb off as you go.
That's exactly what. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. So notice here when I bring up the CodeRush user guide, we now have an entry for first test. This is our oh, I misspelled first there. Our fist action test. Okay. So first test, there it is. It has a description. And if we come in here, we go into options, and we say, it's interesting, it says it's disabled. I'm not sure what that means there. So let's go in. We'll go into My Shortcuts. I'm going to create a brand new shortcut for this. Why is that not? That's really odd. So I'm not getting any response on my shortcut binding here. That is odd. All right, let's see an existing shortcut. Huh. Okay, must be a build issue on mine. We'll take an existing shortcut and we'll hijack it for this. I think I have here, we'll take a guitar mode toggle for my guitar keyboard thing, and we'll change this around. So I'll Control-Alt-Shift-F. I'm not even getting anything here. I can't even, oh, there we go. There it is. All right. And then we'll come in here and we'll find first test from the list. So that's our first test, and we'll click Apply. We have no context, which means it should work anywhere. And then, so if I move the caret out of this special piece here and I hit Control-Alt-F, I should see the dialog. There it is. There's a message box popping up. So yeah, it can work even inside the dialog here, and it'll work, of course, on outside of Visual, in Visual Studio, but when you stop this down. The other one we had was the one to show the markers window. So I'm going to make this Control-Alt-Shift-M instead. We'll come down here and we'll find Show Markers, which should be in the list. Show Markers tool window. That's what we added, and we'll just click OK. Control-Shift-Alt-M. So also, by the way, Show Markers should be in this list too now. Scroll down in here to Show Markers tool window. There it is right there. Show Markers tool window. Okay?
Nice.
So if I hit Control-Shift-M, there's the Markers tool window. So nothing inside of it yet, and you see the line, right? The 0 to 100, 100 line that we're drawing inside of there. So let's dock it, and let's drop a marker and see what happens. I drop a marker. Okay, so I'm expecting this to be updated. I think it's actually maybe working. And the reason we're not seeing anything is because we don't have any code in draw item yet. So I think there may actually be something. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a draw item call right inside here. So let's see what we have in draw item event args. We have draw background. I will take that. And let's say if e dot, what do we have here? We have index equals list markers dot selected index. Then I'm going to call e dot, not draw background, but the other one was a draw focus rectangle. Okay, so so that's the beginning and end of this. Inside of this, I want to come in and do e dot graphics dot draw string, and I want to draw a string here. I'll call it CodeLine for now. The font I want to use is I'm going to just grab list markers dot font, which should already be set to the Visual Studio font. Yep. The brush I'm going to use is, I'm going to say a new solid brush. Whoops, not string builder. What MB is new solid brush, I think. Oh, no. Not going to work there. Let's do it up here. Let's try here. MBR. That's it. Finally found it. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so so this is going to be my, I'll just call it brush, I suppose, for now. Inside here, let's pass in a color. Actually, let's not use a color. I think inside E, we have 4-color. So that's what I need there. So brush is here, passing in brush there. Where am I going to put it? I need to put it based relative to bounds here. So bounds dot left, E dot bounds dot top, for example, there. Okay. Let's introduce a new local for bounds. Just call it bounds, so we aren't referencing that twice. And let's introduce using statement around this so that we are cleaning up those resources. So CodeLine, we don't have a declaration for CodeLine yet. Let's declare that. And what I want to do for CodeLine is I want to go grab it. I want to say, so let's get it. So I want to, I need to, let's see, if e.index is greater than or equal to 0, oops, and e.index is less than list markers dot items dot count. So if we're in range right here, let's do this. Put that code inside there. We'll watch them draw something if we're in range. So we have the code line is what we need to do is we actually need to get that marker based on this. We need to say list markers dot items of e.index as iMarker.
That's right, because the items themselves are iMarkers, and we'll pull those back out.
So there's marker there. And so the code line, what we need to do is come back in. The same thing we did before down with this other code. We're essentially going into marker dot text document dot get text. No, there's something called get line. There you go. Get line, we're going to pass in marker dot line. to that.
Nice.
And that is what we're going to set the CodeLine input to. I just want to look at the code a second. Go ahead.
Now, Mark, do we have to adjust the draw string to draw relative to the item or relative to the list? I don't know how that works.
This is right here going to do it. So the bounds is this is going to give me the rectangle that we're drawing in, and so the draw string is going to go upper left there. We can offset this. This is inside that rectangle. We can offset this by a bit, like that.
Okay.
If we wanted to, or something along those lines. So
but those values they're relative to the item individually. So the second item will still be drawn underneath and underneath and underneath again. We're not going to draw 10 items one on top of each other.
That's not my intent.
Okay, that's cool. I've not worked with list boxes like that too often. So
it's like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. If that's not your intent, I'm cool with that. All right, so let's format everything here. So draw string is now good. And then we're drawing focus rectangle at the end. Let's see what happens. Let's just run it. See what happens. Go on. Oh, let's see what's your problem. Updating a field. What's my field?
It's the creation of the selection marker.
But I already created that.
But I thought that was there already. Yeah.
What did you not like? You thought I made a change up here? Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to copy this code to the clipboard. I'm going to hit undo until Visual Studio is happy, until this is empty. Again. And then I'm going to paste it in. I need some undo music. I need a plugin that plays music when I undo like this. Almost there. Okay, so let's paste it in. Now let's see what happens. Let's run it. Okay, nice. So a couple things. Check it out. It's showing it in the same font, right, as what we have in Visual Studio. And it looks like
the same indentation.
Yeah. Let's drop another marker here. Uh-oh. Oh! Wait a minute. Selected marker. Ah, okay, there's my problem.
There may not be one.
What's the problem there? Yeah, select marker may be null. So let's come back over here, set next statement, and run. All right, good. All right, so let's come down here, drop a marker,
Nice.
drop a marker on diamonds, drop a marker spades, hearts. So you can see what's going on. We've got indentation on all of these.
Yeah.
Let's clean that up a bit. Let's go to the CodeLine. Where do we get that? Get text. That's the preview one. We're up here. We got the CodeLine. Let's put a breakpoint there, and let's just call trim on that at the end. Just the CodeLine equals CodeLine.trim. Okay. Just trim that. So now we've got indentation off on the left there. So not bad. So this is now showing it. So the bottom of the stack is here. It's almost paradoxical. It's the opposite of kind of what we'd ideally like. The bottom of the stack is here. The top of the stack is here. I just dropped one at hearts. Spades is below that. Diamonds below that. So if I start collecting these, hit escape, hearts goes away, hit escape, spades goes away, hit escape, diamonds goes away. If I select this, click on this, assign, oh, I should see a preview. Why am I not seeing a preview? Let's see what's going on over there. So selected, index changed. Here's where we do the show code call. Let's see what's going on here. And so click here. And we'll step through so see what's happening.
Ooh.
Okay, so I fixed something, but I really didn't fix it. Have you ever done this, Rory?
Occasionally, yes.
Okay, so all right, so I need to put all of this down one line.
I remember. Yeah, you were gathering your error handling, showing us it all in one place. It was in the right place before that.
I get excited sometimes, by the way, as I code. I don't know if you can
This
tell.
is fun.
All right, so let's go back up here. We'll set this next statement here, and we'll continue to get our way through F10 all the way down here. Okay, there's our active document. It's valid. Lines to show. Uh-oh, line count 0. Okay, we got a problem here. So I thought line count was the what's it say? Number of text lines displayed. Okay, so it's not the possible ones it can display, which I thought it was. It's the actual. So we're going to have to calculate this. So we're going to instead go with the height divided by code preview dot line height. Okay, we'll do that instead. See if that gives us a better answer. Set next statement. Okay. F10 lines to show is now 24. Start line is 19. End line, oh, you know what? I need some smarter code here. If start line is less than 1, then we need to set start line equal to 1. Okay? And we also need something here that's going to say if end line is greater than active text document dot line count. If end line is greater than that, then I want to simply set it equal to that. Okay, just so we keep everything in bounds there. All right, so back up here where we were here. So I think same, and actually I ran that line code already, but I'll run it again, it won't hurt. So there we are, 19, our end line is 43, and now we're going to call get text. Here's the code. Active document.language, by the way, there you can see it's C#, calling show code. Not bad.
Nice.
Okay, let me stop my breakpoint. Let's run it and play with it for just a little bit. Okay, you can see the code is being displayed.
There you go. And again, DXCall helping you out, doing the preview itself, doing all the coloring correctly, knowing how to highlight that particular language in the correct way. None of that you had to do. You just told it get on with it, and it did.
Right. That's exactly what I said. I said get on with it. So yeah, that's cool. So and we can go show things in other files too, right? It's not just file based. I can come over here to program 1. Over here, drop a couple markers over here too. Come over here, and I can see the previews from the different files. Next thing I want to do is I want to actually draw a circle around where the marker is so I can get a visual indicator of that. So let's go back over here into this piece, and we're oh, and the other thing is navigation. Let's do maybe navigation first. I'm thinking on this, Rory, because it's a little more of a core feature that we want to implement. And then after we do navigation, then I'm going to do, I'm going to change this code in the painted piece to be a little smarter. Sure. Again, I want to remind people what's cool about this is I set up everything I felt I anticipated first. All of I set up these two fields. So the fields you have to kind of anticipate as well, but because you can't add fields using edit and continue. So I worked with the code a bit. So I got to the point where I said I think I have what I need. Ran it once, and then I'm just using edit and continue. Right? If you set up all of your events in advance, it's a nice way to work. Okay, so double click. We want to jump to it. So let's put a breakpoint here. Let's double click on diamonds. Double click on it. Boom. We're here at the breakpoint. So now what we want to do is I guess we want to use that selected piece there in markers. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code. I'm really feeling I need to extract the method here, but I can't do that while I'm in edit and continue. So for now, I'm just going to copy this. So if marker selected index is in range, we're going to get a marker. And then if we get a marker, then we can come in here and we can say marker dot restore position. Now, I'm not sure if this will actually work, if it'll actually switch files or not. If it doesn't, we'll have to switch files. But we'll test this and see if this works. So let's just try this and see what happens. So run, and now let's see if the file changed. Hey, wow, check it out. So not bad. So we were here. I double-clicked on diamonds. Nice. So restore position is really handy for you. See what that's doing? It's activating the file. Let's even try this. Wonder what dangerous things can happen if I close this. So I lose markers there. Let's come over here, double-click.
I bet it'll work.
Okay, it worked, but we lost the markers. Oh, and look what happened over here. So, okay, so when we close a file, we missed an event, Rory. Yeah, I was expecting something like this to happen. So, what's null here? Text document is null. So let's fix this. So INX there. Let's get out of there, and then I like to be efficient, so I'm just going to say that. A little more lines of code, but at least I'm not accessing the property twice, which is kind of this lieutenant thing that I do. I like to have very efficient code. So we'll put the caret back up here, and so our code is a little more robust, and we'll run it. I was kind of expecting something like this to happen. So if we drop a marker, this should all clean up. There, it just cleaned itself up. But what we really need is we need additional events that reload when we close a file. So and this is actually as designed behavior. Right now, markers when you close a file are all deleted. They're essentially gone. If you close a file, if you don't want to work with it anymore, so those markers are gone from the stack. Okay, so we'll need to add that. We'll add that as a to-do list for us. So the other thing I want to do though is there we just hit the double click on this and it put us out on over here to run, but it was hard to see that that's where it put us because the caret is like this small tiny thing. So what I want to do is I want to create a locator beacon there. in response to the double click. So let's go here to restore position. Let's double click here. We'll double click on spades now. Now right after this, I want to do this. I want to say new locator beacon. Locator beacon is, Rory, you have any guesses? You know what this is?
Oh yeah, this is the well, it's the same thing that comes up when you hit the escape key to jump back to a marker in the first place. It's a little kind of zooming in, echo sounding graphic that sort
right
of
there is
zooms in
locator
on the
beacon.
point.
Right, exactly. Now I can create it in code like I'm doing here, or I can drop it on my design surface. We actually have in the toolbox a locator beacon you can drop on if you want to show these. So I'm going to set some properties in here. Duration, I'll say it's like 30, and that's in milliseconds, so that should probably be pretty fast. Maybe I'll do it with like 100 like that. So duration is that. What other properties are interesting? Maybe just a start call like that. It also has, we discovered today when I was doing some research for this, has a property called color, which is hidden. So normally, folks, we do not try to hide things from you. However, in this case, it's hidden, and I talked to the dev about it, and it will not be hidden in 11.1. So normally you don't create it in code, and all of this is much more accessible to you inside the properties window. But for some reason, it's hidden from IntelliSense. So let's change the color of this to something that's a little cooler, and we'll do that. So that'll be the color we use, and then the call to start. What do we need here? The line and column. So marker dot line and marker dot column.
Incredibly hard to guess where those would have been.
Okay, CodeRush is giving me an issue over here on Locator Beacon that it's an iDisposable piece, and then we can introduce a using statement around that. So it implements iDisposable, but it was not disposed until now. And it's also giving me an issue with regards to just saying that I can use an initializer in there, but I'm okay with this code the way it is. So now we got a Locator Beacon on it. Let's run it and watch it. Oh, come on! What's my error?
Wrong kind of color.
Oh, now we need to talk about this. So, when Visual Studio released 2010, they made a transition from WinForms to WPF. When the corresponding version of the DXCall and CodeRush came out, we made it so that you could write code independent of WPF and independent of WinForms and have it work in both. And that's what the error message is saying right here. So we look at the error message. You'll have to bear with me while I work my way out of it. Wait, how did I lose my error message?
You've clicked the error in the error list there.
I guess it went away. All right, so let's. I'm not remembering this. Let me see if I can find my way into finding that. Let's do a run on this.
Is it platform dot? I think you've
sure.
turned off the errors in the error list window there, Mark. If you
Is that something I can turn back on? Oh, I see. Oh my God, I've never used this UI before. I was like, let me just see that, and it went away. Okay, yeah. So this is what I want: DevExpress platform, DevExpress DX Core platform drawing. So what I want is a conversion piece that's in here. So let's look at that. DevExpress.dxcore.platform.drawing. Come on, color. Do I have a from? Oh, this will work.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just paste it in instead of doing a conversion. We do have conversion pieces as well, but I'll just paste in these pieces inside of this, and that should work. So if we paste it, we're going into a. Let's see if that works. Okay. So now, when I do this, wait. I'm sorry, Roy. I was like, what the heck is Locator Beacon? Okay, double click. Okay, way too fast.
It is very quick, but it is there.
Let's do it at 300 now. Let's do it at 500. So half a second. Let's see if that feels right to us. There we go. All right. So can you see that, Rory?
That's actually still not coming through to me. It might just be the frame rate of the GoToMeeting. Stick it on like 1.5 seconds, just temporarily.
Yeah. I'm going to go at 2.5 seconds.
There we go.
I like to just push things way over the bounds of reason.
There we go. That's coming through.
Can you see that now?
Absolutely. Obviously, as everyone can see, this is just purely because it's a frame rate capture for the GoToMeeting.
Yeah, no, I'm glad.
It's really that quicker, but it is showing up very nicely there now.
Good. Okay. The last thing we need to do is show it inside the code preview. That's just the last touch, and I'll show you how you can do that. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll go and look at the code for that, which is, I think I have this placeholder code that draws a line. There it is right there. Set a breakpoint, and okay, we're in this location now. So let's see. I need to find the offset. So I'm going to be working with an integer called this y offset, and that's going to be equal to the. Well, let's find the marker here, or the that we're working with. Well, the marker is that selected marker, right?
That's the one. Yeah.
So I'm gonna, if that's null, then we're just out of here. We're not going to paint anything on top of that. But if it's valid, then the y offset is going to equal selected marker dot line minus the start line, and that's going to be the number of lines down. All of that times the code preview dot line height. That's going to get us really close. Okay, we may need to offset it, a bit by the line height, for example. But I think that's going to get us at the top of that line.
Okay.
And so let's just play with that and see where we get to. The x position, the x offset, well, that's going to be equal to selected marker dot column, so it's column number, times the width of the character. And to get the width, I'm going to go to selected marker dot text document dot active view dot column width. Okay, and I'm going to put some error handling in here by doing an introduce local on this. Call this active document. Document, come out here, exit if that's not valid, and also do error handling here on active view as well. Okay, and so there's my x offset. So next I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say graphics dot should draw ellipse, and for now we'll just say pens dot red, and we're going to say, I think we have some floats. Yeah, there we go. So we'll say x offset minus radius, which we'll declare in a second. Y offset minus radius. Copy that to clipboard so I'm not typing that in anymore. Comma radius times 2, comma radius times 2. And let's declare radius. And we'll call this, we'll set the value of like 20 maybe. Let's see how that works. And see what's going on. What's my, is it not like, okay, there we go, okay, no. All right, so let's run that and see what we get here. Let's turn up the breakpoint and see where we are.
There we go.
I'm not seeing it on this one.
I saw one.
I saw that, for sure. That one's working well. Why is that one failing? Let's step through the code and see what's going on with that one right there. Okay, so Y offset. So this line is 18. The start line is 6. So the Y offset is about 216. Ooh, active view. Ah, there's no active view for this.
Yeah, because it's not.
So let's do instead of this, let's introduce a local here. It's called column width. We'll just set it conditionally here. So if active view is null, so let's break this apart with this down here. Otherwise, we're going to say column width, and we'll set it equal to like 12 or something like that, and we may be off. But now, let's run that. See what happens.
Yeah.
Let's clear the breakpoint. There we go. So we can do that.
Okay.
It's not bad, but I think that what I really want to do is I want to. Well, you know what I'm going to do, Rory, is I'm going to say. I should be able to just get the regular active view. So let's do this instead, I think, what I'm going to do. hold on, I'm going to do this instead. The reason why is that I hate this hard setting 12. It's dumb. And so
I can understand that. Yeah.
Let's make it so it's not so dumb. So let's come in here. We're going to say if active view is null, then I'm going to say active view is equal to, and I'm going to go into CodeRush, and there's something called text views, and there's one in there property called active. So at least something is hopefully active. And then still, if it's null, then I'm going to return, I think is what I'll do. Or maybe I could just use the code down here and use just 12 as the column width. And then I'm much happier. So let's step through the code here until we get a break on that point. Now, so it's not active, but what we can do is we can get from this point here. And so we'll use...
So you may not have that particular C# file open, but you may have a C# file or something similar, which can give you a similar value, which is appropriate.
Right. So here's space. Notice it is a little high, right? The center of this is right between the two lines. So we can drop that down a little bit, and it's a little bit to the left as well. So we can move that over a bit. So I'll just make those minor changes right now, and we'll fix that. So that's in the calculation of the x offset and the y offset. So here, the y offset here, what we want to do is we want to add half of the line height. So let's put here, so go through the line height divided by 2. And the x offset, we want to add 1 here. So I'm going to select that with the paren key to embed it in parens, plus 1, and we'll move that off to the side. The other thing I want to do is instead of using pen.red, I want to create a fatter pen here. So I'm going to say like new pen, and I'm going to pass in cl.color.red for now, and the width we'll make it 5. And since we're creating this, what I really want to do is introduce a local. We come over here, introduce a using statement on it. Let's rename this to just simply the outline pen like that. And I want to come in here and I want to click. Now this one I don't need to change. The other one I did because I was assigning to a property of a different color type. But this I'm just creating. I'm working with system.drawing right now. That's what the pen is there. I'm going to come in here and I just want to make this change the opacity of it. So we've got kind of a thick, fat, slightly opaque circle that we'll be putting around it. Let's clear that, hit run, and we're about to go to questions. So there you can see I drop a marker here, and we click on there's a deck of cards. You can see where these pieces are. Okay, so not bad, not bad. The one thing we have to do that we have to actually stop this for is handle a new event, which is when a file is closing.
Yes.
We want to reset everything, clear the list. And so that's it. So what I want to do now is I want to go to questions. If you have questions on this.
Yeah, please do, because I mean we have nothing currently in the window, but guys, I know you've probably been absolutely stuck to every word that Mark's been saying here. How much of this did you get? Did anything go over your head? Can we embellish or give you extra information anywhere? Is there anything we should make this do that maybe we've forgotten? Please have at it with the questions.
And while you guys are doing that, Roy, is there anything else you think I should talk about with regard to the text commands and the tool windows? Anything else that's interesting to you?
It's so hard to say. You've covered it very well. It should be noted that if you want to do something simple like add a menu to CodeRush, to one of those, the standard menus, an action is how you would do that. You can assign or detail a menu that an action will appear as a menu item on. So it's the second way to activate. You don't have to bind it to a keystroke.
Oh yeah, let's do that. We'll spend a little bit of time while we're looking. If you guys have questions, go ahead and fill something. Go ahead and ask them if there's a particular direction you want to see us going. I want to just show a couple things. I want to show how to put. I'll talk a little bit what Rory said. Plus, I'll show how to create an image for the tool window as well. So we'll close this down. I'm going to go over into my painting program, and we'll go ahead and close that there. We'll just say I want to do File, New, and dimensions. You want to create a 16 by 16 icon, or 16 by 16 bitmap. And inside the bitmap, I want to have the background color be this green right here, which is 0 to 54, 0. It's just one green shade shy of lime green. It's not 255, but 254. It's a magic color there. And so I can fill that in there. Then I can come in and then draw on that, whatever I'm going to put on that. So we'll I have create a a red triangle on here to indicate that it's a marker. Then I'm going to save this out, and let's take this not in here, but inside tool windows and actions, markers tool window. We'll put this here, call it markers.bmp. Say OK. Then we'll come over back over into Visual Studio, and we'll make those final last-minute changes, those last changes we said we wanted to do. So one of them was an event, and when the we want to look at documents, here's when the document is closing, we want to come in and essentially do this, update the marker list. I'm realizing now that update the marker list should probably just set select marker equal to null at the beginning of it, since we're about to put that everywhere. So we'll do that, set that to null. Over here on the design surface, we'll go to properties, and for the tool window, there it is right there. And inside here we have a property called image, and we'll load up the image. And that's over in /projects, tool windows and actions, purpose tool window, there it is. So there's a piece right there. The image back color you can see is set for us automatically there. Roy was talking also about if you want to put something on the menu. So you can come over here in your action, like act first test, and we can specify a common menu, for example, to put this under. For example, we can say first test, or maybe yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So first test is going to put it under the edit menu, for example. So we can do that as well. We can also similarly specify an icon for it here, and that will show up in the menu.
And so if you are going to put it on a menu, you'll need a button text as well in order to actually have a caption recognizing.
Yeah, thanks for that. So we'll just say propose first test like that. And let's also, it's useful when I do this to group by, just see if there's anything else in here. These are some other interesting properties that are actually, we're essentially exposing low-level things from Visual Studio. Also over here, we're doing the same thing. These are all low-level events that we are exposing as well, with the exception of, I think, position menu button. So this allows you to precisely position this within the menu button. So to do the same things using the Visual Studio's extensibility is like orders of magnitude more challenging. So that's another reason for working with DXCall. So with that, I'll save everything. If we have any questions, we'll answer them. I'm gonna run this for now, and we'll go check out those changes, and if there are no other questions, we'll let Amanda wrap it up.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions so far, so I'm assuming we explained everything rather well.
Well, thank you very much, Rory. And Amanda, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
You know, it's awesome to have you with us, by the way. You're just like there. I want to live in a house where I can say, Amanda, are you still with us? And just over the intercom, yes, Mark, I'm still here. You know, I need those tickets
sure we can arrange
now,
that.
Amanda. Yeah, whatever. So, yeah, so here we go. Marcus tool window is coming up. Let's see if we can see the icon on that when I dock it. Here, dock it. There's the icon right there for the Marcus tool window. And to get it, it's over here in DevExpress. Oh, Marcus tool window. I told you I'd show you how to change that. I did not show you that, but it is in this piece right here. You simply change that. And you actually want it to be something shorter for this. You want the title to be like markers so that it doesn't take up all this room down here on the tab.
Yeah.
So that is it. I will post this source code on my blog, and we'll post a link to this video hopefully soon. And tell your friends about it, and join us next week where Rory and I will talk about, Amanda, what are we talking about next week?
That's a good question.
Let's see what we got here.
You can see it faster than I do.
Here it is. I got it right here. Text commands, string providers, and context providers. So we'll talk more about this. This one I think is going to be awesome. I'm going to, my intention is to build the text command I alluded to in a previous demonstration or a previous CodeRush webinar, the text command that allows you to actually move the caret up to the fields and put the field there, and then move back to declare the rest of the property. This is a feature that customers have asked us for, my intention is to actually build it live right there in the webinar. So if I'm successful, that will ship that, and it'll eventually become part of 11.1. But we'll also show you how to create string providers and context providers as well. So I think that'll be very informative, and so join us for that. And Amanda, I pass it off to you.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, you're going to be doing that one from Dev Connections Orlando, correct?
Holy cow, I think you're right. I should pay attention to my schedule.
Rory, you're not going to be there, but Mark, you are. Are you doing anything interesting while you're there? Are you doing any cool demos, or?
Yeah, my intention is to, well, we're going to show the Connect stuff that Seth and I have been working on, and parts of it are very cool. It's not cohesive yet, so we only have a few days to make it cohesive, or maybe we just show it as a work in progress, and the next conference after that we have a killer, awesome, amazing Minority Report style demo. The idea is what we're doing is we're programming Visual Studio using the Connect, so using essentially just you know your hands and hand motion. We're writing code, so that is
very cool. Awesome. All right, so we have one more webinar this week. It's this Thursday, March 24th at 10 a.m. Printing, exporting, theming, and serializing the Silverlight Grid from DevExpress with Silverlight evangelist Emil Misropian. In this webinar, we'll take a look at completed sample applications containing the Silverlight Grid control and work backwards, looking at how each part is implemented. Topics covered will include binding to data, applying themes, showing print preview, exporting to file formats, grid view, serialization, and finally interface localization. It's a mouthful. All right, and again, if you missed anything from this webinar or you'd like to download it for later viewing, visit us on the DevExpress channel at tv.devexpress.com. Thank you, Mark and Rory, for being here. Thank you all for joining us, and thanks for choosing DevExpress.